number, this is number 6. So for number 6, what we're going to do is we are going to find the 2 additional roots. So remember when I told you if you have a square root or you have an I, you want to list its conjugate as the other 2 roots. So the other 2 roots would be negative root 7 and 2 minus 3i. Hi, okay, so we're going to do number 7, where we have to write a polynomial equation with rational coefficients using 6 and 3 minus 2i. So for starters, we're going to have x minus 6 and x minus 3 minus 2i, but you can't forget its conjugate, which is x minus 3 plus 2i. Whenever you see one of those i's, you know you're going to also have the opposite with it as well. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite these 2 right here so that they become trinomials. I'm going to do them in a different color. The x minus 6, we're just going to leave it for right now. So I'm going to have x and then a negative times 3, so x minus 3, x plus 2i times x minus 3 minus 2i. And so I'm going to go ahead and FOIL out these 2, knowing that I'm going to come back later and FOIL out the x minus 6 with the product of these 2. So I'm going to start with my first term. So x times x is x squared. X times negative 3 is negative 3x. X times negative 2i is negative 2ix. Then I'm going to switch colors. I'm going to do negative 3 now. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. Negative 3 times negative 2i is positive 6i. Computer died there. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my last term, my 2i. So 2i times x is positive 2ix. 2i times negative 3 is going to be negative 6i. And 2i times negative 2i is negative 4i squared. All right. So the great thing about this is that you're going to have a lot that cancels out. So my x squared doesn't have any friends, so it just stays x squared. Negative 3x can combine with negative 3x, and we get negative 6x. Negative 2ix, and then positive 2ix. Those 2 will cancel out. 9 doesn't have any constant terms. 6i and negative 6i, those will cancel out as well. And then I have minus 4i squared. Now remember, I squared is the same thing as negative 1. So I'm going to rewrite this one more time as x squared minus 6x. Now 9 minus 1 times 4 is going to be a negative 4. So it's going to be 9 plus 4, so it's going to be plus 13. Alrighty, then I'm going to bring down this x minus 6, alright, and now I'm going to multiply this binomial by this trinomial. Okay, so we have x times x squared, which is going to be x cubed, x times negative 6x, let's turn this down a little bit, x times negative 6x is negative 6x squared, x times 13 is going to be positive 13x. Now I'm going to worry about the 6, the negative 6. So negative 6 times x is negative 6x squared. Negative 6 times negative 6x is going to be positive 36x. And negative 6 times 13, I'm actually going to do this in the corner over here. 18, 6, 1 is 7. I'm going to get negative 78. All right, and then last bit is we're just going to combine like terms here. So I have x cubed, negative 6x squared, and negative 6x squared. These guys will combine, and I'm going to get negative 12x squared. 13x and 36x, I'm going to get plus 49x, and then my constant term here at the end, negative 78. So there is your answer for that problem. All right, guys, so we're going to be finding all the roots for this equation up here. Now, I asked you to find all the roots without graphing it or like without using your calculator. So when you're finding all the real roots, then if you use your calculator, you can find them pretty quickly. However, you have to be able to find all the irrational roots as well. I did a little bit of cheating. So the first two roots, if you graph this, the real roots are going to be, I believe, negative 1 and 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to take those two roots and we're going to divide it in here using synthetic division. And we're going to break it down until we can factor it. And then once we factor it, then we're going to find the irrational roots. All right? So I already know that x is equal to, negative 1 and 3. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just pick one of these, and I'm going to start using synthetic division. So I put negative 1 in my little magic box. All right? Fix this a little bit better. Okay, and I'm going to take all these coefficients. So I got 1, negative 2, negative 1, negative 4, and negative 6. So notice how my exponents are in a descending order, 4, 3, 2, 1. There's no like blank space in here where I'd have to put in a 0 to be a placeholder. All right, so first I bring down my 1. And then I multiply it. Negative 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. Sorry. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. 2 plus negative 1 is negative 3. Negative 1 times negative 3 is positive 3. Negative 1 plus positive 3 is 2. 2 times negative 1 is 2. Negative 2. Negative 4 and negative 2 gets you negative 6. Negative 6 times negative 1 is positive 6. And negative 6 and 6 gets me 0. Now, if you did not get 0 as your remainder, that means you either did your synthetic division wrong or that negative 1 is not a root. So now I have this number right here. So really what this means is that after dividing this by negative 1, I would have x cubed minus 3x squared plus 2x minus 6, okay? So now I need to divide this by my other root, 3, to break it down so I can factor it. So I'm just going to take these coefficients now, and I'm going to divide them by this root of 3 here. So I'm going to go 1, negative 3, 2, negative 6, and I'm going to divide them all by 3. So I put 3 in the magic box. Tilt the screen a bit. Okay, I bring down my 1. 3 times 1 is 3. Negative 3 and 3 is 0. 3 times 0 is 0. 2 plus 0 is 2. 3 times 2 is 6. Negative 6 and 6 is 0. All right, so this is my new equation here. since I have divided this equation up here, notice how it's x to the 4th root by 2 x's. My coefficient here is 1, and my exponent is going to be 2 now because I've taken 2 x's out of this original equation, being the 1 and the 3. I have 2 more to go. So I'm going to have, let's block this off. So I'm going to take this here, I'm going to rewrite it up here as x squared, and then I don't have an x value, so I have x squared plus 2 equals 0. So we have the sum of squares here, and with the sum of squares, that doesn't work. So we know with the sum of squares what we can do is we want to solve for x, so we're going to bring 2 to the other side. So we have x squared equals -2. We take the square root of both sides. So x is going to equal plus or minus -√2. However, we can't have a square root that's negative, so we pull out that negative and replace it with an I. So the values for x are going to be plus or minus I√2. And those are our 2 other values for our equation. Those are our 2 other roots. So your answer for your last one is going to be x is -1, 3, and plus or minus I√2, because I have a 4 up here, and the theorem tells me that I should have 4 roots. So 1, 2, 3, 4.